Hey, good morning. It's Wednesday. It's time for another episode of Come On Ref. I think we got a good episode for you today. I say that every week, but sit down and have a cuppa. I think there's a tea kettle going on somewhere. Listen, it's first of all, it's almost spooky season, right? Like I think that's kind of a fun thing. It's almost October. Um, I got a special episode coming for you guys, October 25th. I would pay attention to that. Just maybe keep an eye on it. May have a special guest host. That's all I'm going to say. Just some exciting stuff coming up along those lines. But yeah, that's all we got. Um, guys, what are we going to talk about today, man? I want to kind of get right into it because there's a lot of stuff going on, man. There's just a lot of really weird things happening over the weekend, really. Did anybody see the Dolphins? What happened? I mean, well, first off, let's talk about the Cowboys getting upset by the Cardinals. Like, that was a little strange, right? I mean, Jared, I'm going to start with you a little bit. I mean, I don't mean to I'm not trying to rub it in, but like, what happened in that game?
Our defensive coverage was terrible. I mean, I know we lost Trayvon Diggs for the season with his torn ACL, but I mean, he's a big key piece of our defense. But at the end of the day, one guy doesn't make up the whole defense. At the end of the day, we just blew tons of coverages. We didn't apply any pressure to Dobbs, and that's what ultimately lost the game for us.
Yeah. You think Kyler Murray would have gotten that same job done?
No.
No.
Honestly, not of his right now. No, I don't think because of Murray's injury. I mean, he's coming back from an ACL injury, as am I, and it's hard to come back from an ACL injury in general.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's at the level of Dobbs yet. With reps, hopefully. I mean, I know the Cardinals are hopeful because they're giving him a lot of money. Um, but needless to say, it's not bad to have Dobbs as a starter right now.
Yeah. Hey, listen, at least you didn't get 70 hung on you. I mean, I don't know what got into Tua and the Dolphins on Sunday, but I mean, is that a Sean Payton thing or is that more of a what was that? What happened? That was wild.
That was not letting Russ cook anymore because I don't think his food's very good.
I don't think it's a Sean Payton thing. I think it's the Broncos' defense because in years past, the problem with the Broncos has been the quarterback play. Like that's what's plagued them since Peyton Manning has retired. And this season, Russ is not playing bad. Russ's numbers are pretty solid. But now all of a sudden this season, their defense that was a top five unit last year has been the worst in the NFL. They give up 70 to Miami. They gave up 35 to Washington, Washington only put up three against Buffalo, and Sam Howell threw four interceptions. So allowing them to put 35 on you is not a good look. Then allowing the Dolphins to put 70 on you, there's problems in Denver right now, specifically on the defensive side of the football.
Here's a fun fact for you with Denver. They've only scored 69 points this season so far, including their three games. So Miami on Sunday would have beat them the whole season already.
Wow,
It's pretty crazy.
Just Miami would have beaten them.
That's unbelievable.
that's crazy.
I like that you added that they've scored in their games. I don't know where else they would score points. That's fine. I thought that was a little interesting tidbit. It made me laugh. That's all. That's fine. Scored some points in the parking garage on the way out on Sunday because I think everybody just kind of wanted
Somehow.
to leave. But yeah. And listen, we got to talk about Green Bay because is Green Bay on their third Hall of Fame quarterback in a row?
Might be.
I mean,
Jordan Love's pretty good.
I don't really know. I mean, the Packers have really surprised me so far this season. I mean, they've played the Bears and the Saints, who are kind of like, well, the Bears.
Saints were
the
2 0 at the end
Bears.
of that game.
Yeah, and honestly, they probably should have lost the Saints. And I don't really know as a football fan how good the Saints are right now. But the Packers showed in that game that until the time's up, like we're in it, you know.
yeah.
And it should be
One play sticks out in my mind, and it wasn't even a completion. It was like a trick play where they threw back to Jordan Love, and it was a terrible play, but he almost made something out of it, man. He like picked it up, stumbled, slipped, almost completed the pass down the field. Like I don't know if he's just really locked in right now. I don't know if this is sustainable. People always say, when they get film on him, it's going to be. I don't know if that's the case. I mean, I have no idea, but right now he looks really good, and Green Bay looks. I mean, just again, brilliant. I mean, does anyone forecast quarterbacks any better than Green Bay? I mean, when they're ready, when they're done, it's amazing.
I mean,
Well,
there's something to the strategy of drafting a guy and letting him sit behind a Hall of Famer for 3 seasons because
Yeah.
Jordan Love has gotten a back seat to Aaron Rodgers, winning two MVPs, taking the Packers to two NFC Championship games. So he's gotten to see what it's like to be a Hall of Famer. So that's probably rubbed off on him a lot. And I know in college he was plagued by turnovers a lot at Utah State, and so far this season he has not turned the ball over very much. Only has one interception. So I think
Yeah.
that's definitely something you can learn from Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers threw less interceptions than almost any quarterback in NFL history. So to get to learn from Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years, it's really no surprise that Jordan Love has came out and looks like a veteran out there. He doesn't look like a guy making his first couple of career starts.
Yeah, exactly. And I started to ask you, and it's funny how far it goes back because I started to say, is this a scheme thing? But I mean, my God, we're talking about Brett Favre. I mean, back to the '90s. I mean, it's not a scheme thing. I mean, this has been happening for 30 or 40 years now. I mean,
I
it's
remember,
wild how long they've had a good run at this.
I remember when the Packers drafted Jordan Love, and everyone's like, "What did they just do? We have a quarterback already. We don't need him." But
Yeah.
but I think everyone knew at that point, towards the beginning of that year when Aaron Rodgers still didn't have a deal, they're like, "Oh, this guy could be our starter, and we could need him." But then Aaron Rodgers came back, and I think that benefited the Packers well, because now this is going to be a good run for the Packers, I think, with Jordan Love.
Yeah, and Jackson, I mean, is there a better team in the NFL at like I said, just forecasting quarterbacks? I mean, not necessarily scouting. I mean, that obviously that's there too, but I mean, just knowing when these guys are ready and when they're going to be done. I mean, is there a better team than Green Bay? I mean, if there is, I don't know. I mean, who is it?
Well, if you go back in prior content, I said it before. I was saying that the Packers pretty much are clairvoyant when it comes time to, parting ways. They know exactly when to break up, and they've won again. The way I see it at this point, Jordan Love more than likely will improve over time. But you guys made a perfect point. He's got tutelage, and he's got the sit back seat to Aaron Rodgers, which everybody made a big deal about Zach Wilson sitting back seat to Aaron Rodgers, and it made this huge difference over just a couple months. Well, imagine a guy sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a few seasons. There's a huge difference there. So
Yeah.
I think the Packers are in good shape. I think Jordan Love's in good shape. He was the reason I was having such a hard. I picked the Lions to win the division, but the Packers was the other team that I was kind of iffy about.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they're right there in good game Thursday coming up.
Yeah, they play each other
Yeah,
tomorrow.
they play each other tomorrow, and I think if you're a Packers fan, you have to be hopeful because the Bears and the Vikings are going to be at the bottom of the barrel in that division. So this is a
Yeah.
team that possibly could even get a wild card spot in the NFC. It was
I
see
picked
their division. It's going to help them boost their record for sure.
I picked the Lions to win the division, but excuse me, I didn't think the Packers were going to be as good as they looked this far.
I
No,
thought,
I
it,
thought the
I
Packers
thought
were
it
going
was
to
an off year getting adjusted to Jordan Love, and without Aaron Rodgers, it's like
Well, I thought they would need at least a season.
Cavs when they lost LeBron the first time.
I
Terrible.
thought average at least the first season. I didn't expect them to come out looking like they might compete for that. They look like they might be a playoff team, possibly.
It is only week 3 right now, so a lot
Yeah, it's
could
early.
change in
It's early for sure.
15 weeks.
Yeah, it's for sure early, but I mean, yeah, it does look really good. And I mean, I was going to ask you guys, what makes you think the Bears are going to end up in the basement of that division? I don't understand. I mean,
Because
There's a lot. There's a lot there.
Where do you start?
That would
Chad?
take a whole episode to cover.
yeah, we don't have time to go through the 53-man roster there. We don't have time.
Justin Fields would rather be an astronaut than a quarterback.
Oof, man, it's bad. It's really bad. But I want to move on. I just want to completely change gears on you. We got to talk about baseball for a little bit because the AL West and the AL wildcard race are out of control right now. I mean, it's like teams just playing leapfrog with each other. I mean, we can put up the standings here and take a look at. We'll take a look at the AL West first because I mean, this seems to be, I don't know, kind of the most important battle, and all the wildcard teams are going to fall in after that. But yeah, I just was watching Texas last night, watching Houston, Seattle. I mean, I was trying to watch some of these games out west, just working on some of the stuff for the show, or whatever, trying to figure out where the standings were going to fall. And I mean, it seems like Texas had won 6 in a row before last night. But I mean, looking at this, I mean, the last 10 here, 3-7 for Houston, 4-6 for Seattle. It's like no one wants to really take this division, man. I mean, I don't know, Jared, who's going to win this division, man?
I really think right now, Chad, I do think Texas does win this. I mean, they have 3 games left against Seattle to finish the season.
Yeah.
And I really think after facing Seattle this past week, Seattle's just falling down the tube because Seattle has division play left. They're facing the Astros right now. They got beat by the Astros a couple nights ago when Verlander took the mound against their best pitcher, Castillo. So I really think at the end of the day, Texas wins this division, and Houston goes in the wild card, and Seattle is at the bottom of the pile and doesn't make it to the playoffs.
They won't make it. I was feeling the same way. I thought Seattle kind of was the odd man out.
Because Houston has that reputation of being in the playoffs every year. They have that experience. And Texas, with all the signings and money they have as a team, they're bound to make the playoffs, at least on paper, and they've proved it so far. Yeah. And we've seen it time and time again that Houston and Texas are streaky. And at the end of the day, I do think Texas will win the division. Houston will make the wild card, and they're going to have to put up or shut up in the playoffs.
Yeah. I do think things could get really interesting, though, because the Rangers and Mariners play each other for that last 3-game set. And the Rangers and the Mariners and the Astros play each other tonight, again, to finish off their series. If the Mariners win tonight, then now they catapult into the third wild card spot, and then Houston falls out. So, I mean, I'd say the Mariners really control their own destiny here, kind of, with that series against Texas. It's like that series is going to really determine whether they make the playoffs or not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a wild division. I mean, did anybody really expect? I mean, Texas has looked really good. Did anybody expect them to hang around this long for the year? I mean, they've scored a ton of runs this year. They've been two different teams at times. They're kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde a little bit.
Yeah, they've been two different teams. At one point during the season, I think in late June, early August, the Mariners were 10 games back. Mm-hmm. They won 10 straight, and they took solo control of the division. Texas fell to third for the first time in August all year. To third. But that's because how tight of the race is. Now, going back to last week, I said it was going to be Mariners, Braves in the World Series, and the Mariners will win in 7. I'm sticking with the Mariners.
Okay.
The Mariners are going to go have Texas at home, correct? Texas at home because they just faced them on the road. They're going to take Texas. They're going to sweep them up, send them back down. Texas will be the wild card, and Houston's just going to get left out, I think.
Okay. Well, Houston out. Okay. See, Texas was my sneaky pick to get to the World Series in the AL, so I got to stick with Texas right now. I'm riding with the Rangers in the AL. I don't know why. I just am.
2.5 game lead.
Last
week be hard to blow.
So many of us picked.
But don't forget they are also tied with Houston.
Hold on, Max. Jackson, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying last week, so many of us had picked the Astros. I was one of them to be in the World Series.
Yeah.
And now, I don't know. I mean, Texas looks good. I don't agree with Max with Seattle. I don't think Seattle has that type of firepower to sweep Texas this weekend. I'm definitely not feeling that in my system. Yeah. But do I want to stick with the Astros? I kind of feel like I should, just because this is the time of year they're strong and they're proven. We've seen this before with them, but I don't know, man. Texas looks really good.
Yeah, I'm going to ride with the Rangers because I told you guys last week I thought they could make it to the World Series if things go right, and then they ripped off 6 wins in a row. So, I mean, I like I said, they made me feel smart right there. I'm just going to ride with them, man. And yeah, I mean, the Rangers don't have a good bullpen, but who does right now this time of year? I mean, everybody's bullpen is kind of pieced together. I mean, even the Braves, who looked like, the bullpen was going to be a strength coming in, obviously, other than the offense. I'm worried about the Braves bullpen. Like, I don't know if they can sustain leads in October. We'll have to see. I have no idea. So who knows?
They have the starting pitching and the offense.
I'm sorry.
It's frail.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll just have to see. So yeah, Mariners, Max. Okay. All right. Okay.
I know it's risky, but
yeah, but hey, I mean, that's fine. I don't agree, but that's okay. I mean, that's fine. That's what you think. It's what you think.
That's kind of a hot take, kind of. Because like the
Mariners' offense is just so up and down. They only have like 3 or 4 really consistent hitters in that lineup, and that's been what's plagued them this season. Because the Mariners have a great starting rotation. I mean, George Kirby's had a great season. Logan Gilbert's had a great season. Luis Castillo. And they do have a good back end of their bullpen, Seattle does. But
yeah, Castillo is like timeless, by the way, man.
Do they have enough firepower to compete with the teams like Texas and Houston?
Yeah. That's why I think Texas. I feel like Texas is, like I said, we don't have a good bullpen. Aiden said it here in the chat, but yeah, I do feel like Texas is a team that's built to score runs in October, and sometimes that's the difference, man. I mean, if you can score a little bit in October, I mean, you know how things get tight in the playoffs. I mean, baseball playoffs are totally different. You can throw all the records out. I mean, once you're in the playoffs in baseball, anybody has a chance. I mean, it's really, really wide open. And it doesn't matter, what the starting staff looked like the last 2 weeks of the season or what the bullpen looked like or, what shoe your third baseman ties for. I mean, none of that matters in the playoffs. It's just it's situational, man. You go with it and you roll and that's it, man. I mean, it's October. It's wild, right? Like I love the baseball playoffs. It's my favorite time of year. It's actually it's a struggle a little bit because I have to choose between like some of the night college football games and, watching baseball playoffs, and especially if the Braves are in it. I mean, that's a tough decision for me, but because you only get a few weeks of college football, right? So it's like, I don't know, it's a tough decision, but we can move on. I think we've all kind of got our picks there. Speaking of college football, some things happened. I think we found out about some contenders. Maybe some people, shook themselves out of, being considered contenders for the moment. I think the most obvious one is, Colorado went to Oregon and it kind of got, they got their dose of reality handed to them a little bit, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oregon is a really, really good team. They're just so good. I think on both sides of the ball. That's the problem. Jackson, you watched this game, correct?
Yeah.
What was the difference this week? I mean, obviously Colorado had all the fire. They had all the emotion. They had, everything going in. I mean, all the talk was there again. I mean, it was like kind of the, Colorado State situation where there was something said before the game and it, may have turned a little personal. I don't know why that keeps happening, but what happened to them? I mean, what happened?
Well, it appears after the game, so much has transpired about the game. I guess before the game, Shador was really giving a mouthful to Oregon. During the warm-ups, the pregame, he was really letting them have it, letting them know what he was going to do. And then after the game, I'm hearing that Oregon got a ton of help from tons of coaches all over the country to help beat Colorado. It's that serious. It's that real. So it's a salad every week with Colorado. It's never just the football game. It's always a salad. It's always, here's the football, here's the trash talk, here's the media, it's always things. It's like a bunch of moving parts to every week that they play.
Yeah.
So
really.
with Oregon, they're really a great team. You would think that they're not going to need all the extra. The coach had an awesome pregame speech. I liked how he saved that for that. He let the cameras in. So obviously he wanted people to see that. But I appreciate what he said. I was saying last week on the show, I got a Rocky 3 vibe about Colorado. I don't want to say they got humbled. I mean, they weren't at full strength. And the guy they were without, he plays both sides of the ball. Yeah. So it's like not having two guys. There's a lot there. It's a hostile environment. I didn't think Colorado was going to win this game. I ultimately thought the score was about what it should have been for all practical purposes. I mean, it could have been worse, I do feel like that Oregon did let off the gas somewhat. They're trying to say they didn't. But at the end of the day, there's going to be more bullseyes on the back. They got USC next week. I probably should just stick to the Oregon because I got a ton to say about Colorado. But, due to time constraint, other people having to touch the mic, I'm going to kind of leave it at that. But in further weeks to come, I'm going to give you more about how I feel about that situation.
Okay. And I'm interested to see what happens in this USC game. If there's, I don't know, a little bit of an emotional letdown.
Can we just say more of the same? I feel like, I mean, as far as Jared and Nick, I know them a little better than Max there. I think it'd be safe to say we're probably all in agreement. Next week is going to be another kick in the face.
Yeah, USC they put 50, 60 points on them.
Yeah, it might get like embarrassing.
Well, I think the difference is they may score some more on USC. I think Oregon has a much better defense than USC. I think Colorado can put up maybe 24, maybe 30 points. But they might give up 50 or 60.
But do they put up enough to win?
No.
And that's the point.
No.
They'll lose with 28.
Yeah.
That's the thing with Colorado. They'll probably get more points because they learned from Oregon's defense and they have to improve their offense tremendously.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that Jackson said. They do so much talking before the game on social media, and it's just all for nothing. You know, like you won 3 games. Why are you talking so much hype on social media and talking so much trash to the other players? I know it's part of the game.
Yeah.
Today, you were ranked number 19 going in.
Yeah.
You were 21.5-point underdogs. Like, why are you talking all this trash and all this stuff on social media? You've won 3 games. Do you want a medal for participation? Like,
Well, and I think Jared, some of it is I think they're feeling that pressure from the outside. I mean, they're in a pressure cooker. Like everybody, they're very polarizing right now, right? Like you either want to see Colorado win or you love to see them lose. I mean, there's no middle ground with them right now.
media from Coach Prime. Like,
the
where's
media.
the pressure?
It's the
coming
media.
from?
The media has put Colorado on a pedestal that, in my like, the fact that it was even like hyped up to the point of people thinking they can beat Oregon and USC. That's just not where they're at right now, and that's
No.
okay. Like that's
Yeah.
okay.
And now we know that.
Football,
Yeah.
But that's not the football part. The football part has nothing to do with people saying, I want them to beat USC and Oregon. Because real football fans know more than likely they're not good enough to do that. But it's a culture thing. It's like it's like being on the right side of history. 30 years from now, when we look back at the Colorado Buffalo situation, people are going to regret not being supported because it's going to be an awesome thing. And just like a lot of things, when it's new, you're kind of weird about it and don't know. But after the fact, it's like the Patriots. Nobody saw all those Super Bowls coming. Not from them. There was no reason to see that. It's the same with Colorado. It's bigger than football. It's about representation. It's about being part of the culture and changing the face of D1 college football, how it's always looked. Nobody in their right mind thinks Colorado can win those games, but people in their heart, in their soul, in their fanship, they want them to win all the games. All right, I'm done.
I'm just saying the media. That's what I'm saying. The media coverage doesn't match up with the talent of the team. It just doesn't.
No.
And it
Not
could
even
in
close.
future years.
Yeah.
In future years, because I do think Deion's going to get he's going to get some more 5-stars in there. He's going to build this team up, and I do think at some point that they can be a playoff team in the 12-team playoff era. But right now, to me, they're like a 7 or 8 win team probably, and that's okay. But they won 1 game last season. 1 game. So it's
Listen,
okay.
they're improved, right? It's going to take time. I mean, it's going to take time to get there. You can add 80 new guys in the transfer portal, and that's fine. That's great. Now you have a new identity. The problem is you have to take the time to get to know those 80 new guys and to figure out how they play together and what situations they thrive in and what situations they don't thrive in. And I mean, there so many ins and outs. But the thing go ahead, Jackson. Go ahead.
One last thing.
Mhm.
I want to make a comparison to how we've seen this before. You guys might be a little too young. Chad, you might remember the Georgetown Hoyas.
Mhm.
They were nobodies. They were horrible. They hired John Thompson, an up-and-coming coach, and then they put together an all-black squad on a pretty much predominantly white campus.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, the campus, the community, the culture, it happened again. Everybody was supportive of the Georgetown Hoyas, and they went on to win a national championship. They had the same bullseyes, same media scrutiny, same out. It was a little racism. I mean, it's DC, it's the 80s. He's a black coach. It's all black team, but it has the same vibes. Deion's a black coach, predominantly black team, playing for a predominantly white school. Boulder, Colorado has 1.1 black population. Look at the change in the flux of like the black support of Colorado now. Colorado's about to become like a black neighborhood. And that's awesome for football and the culture.
Yeah.
So it's only the beginning. I wanted to make that comparison there because I want the kids, they're not kids, but I want the young guys to, look up how this has happened before. History repeats it.
Yeah, and listen, Boulder feels vibrant for the first time maybe since Cordell Stewart's Hail Mary. I don't know. I mean, it just feels like it's lively, like it's alive. That college football is actually alive in Boulder again. It's fun. I think it's fun.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And listen, last thing I want to say about Deion Sanders, and the reason that I'm just so confused. Well, I'm not confused, but it bothers me that he gets so much hate because it feels to me like some people you feel it through the screen, right? Like when you watch them. Coach Prime cares about his kids, man. And I've said this before, not just his own, not just Shador and Shiloh. I mean, every single kid on that roster he cares about. And I know people say, oh, he came in and, weeded out the whatever. Listen, he cared about those kids too. I mean, the bottom line is it just feels like Deion Sanders is going to get the top effort out of this roster one way or another, right? And like you said, I mean, the fact that that we're talking about them being a 7 or 8 win team this year after going 1-11 last year, and having just a whole new influx of a coaching staff, new talent, new players, new everything. I mean, it's wild that we consider them a 7 or 8 win team, and that would be wildly successful, and that's fine. I mean, they don't. Like they lose one game and there's like, oh, they're back down to earth. That's better, And why is that the attitude, man? Like,
And that's
they can't just show like marked improvement and get better over time. It's wild.
They raised them to the mountaintop and then they fell down. I saw.
It's not Colorado's fault. That's the media's problem. If you don't like that, then don't watch Sports Center, right? I mean,
Oregon University media team. They did like a cinematic video of that game, and they were recording Colorado stomping on the logos. It's turf. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to destroy anything. And then it was all during warm-ups, as Jackson said, they would not stop talking.
yeah.
They would say, "Oh, we're going to run it up your throats today. We're not going to stop. We're going to just pound the rock. We're going to make you regret you didn't play this football game."
Yeah.
And then it came down to business, and Colorado just couldn't produce anything until the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Hey, Max, you know what that was about? Colorado didn't get to hear what Oregon's coach said to Oregon's team before the game.
Yeah,
Oregon approached the game. What?
He said the Cinderella story's over. It's your time now.
I don't think that's fair. I wouldn't call this a Cinderella story. I mean, a Cinderella story is that's a fluke.
The media was
this is just the beginning.
Yeah,
I just think that what we're talking about right now proves the point. We're talking about the team that lost 42-6 more than the team that won. And I just think that when that happens, your team is obviously going to have a target on your back because no one likes overhyped teams like that gets all the media coverage.
So we're part of the problem. I mean, look at it. We're part of the problem. We're calling out the media, but we're the media. We're part of the problem. We're talking about them, right?
You should be talking about the teams that won this weekend, not the team that lost 42-6.
Okay, my bad. So let's talk about Oregon. They're green and yellow, right?
We don't know.
Bo Nix is a Heisman contender.
Bo Nix is legit. I mean, listen, Bo Nix is legitimately a Heisman candidate. I think that team's a playoff challenger. I don't see any reason they're not. Obviously, they're going to have some tough games. They're going to have some challenges along the way, but we'll see. I mean, all we can do is watch, right?
Dan Lannon, I think he's a great that's a coach you want to play for. Dan Lannon for sure.
Okay.
in that pregame speech, yeah.
That gets you fired up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was passionate. There's nothing wrong with that. Listen, I'm going to move on to another game that intrigued me last week. We didn't really get the chance to preview it on the show or talk about it much. But man, Florida State barely survived Clemson, right? I watched most of this game, and I don't know. I don't know what your guys' takeaway from this was, but I'm trying to decide if Clemson is getting back on track here, or if maybe Florida State just stumbled a little bit on the way to whatever they're going to do this season. Listen, it wasn't that Florida State was overlooking Clemson, right? I mean, 7 straight losses to Clemson? Was that right coming in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they weren't overlooking them. It wasn't like they had just dominated Clemson and said, oh, this guy snuck up on us. Like, who are these guys? Everybody knows who Clemson is. Everybody knows who Dabo Swinney is. Another polarizing program, right? You either kind of love Clemson or you hate them. It's kind of one way or another. Most people, I don't think, feel indifference. It's kind of like Ohio State. It's a college football thing. I think a lot of teams are really polarizing. I guess we can say that. But the one thing I noticed about Clemson, I thought they were really physical early defensively with Florida State, and it was something that I expected LSU to do against Florida State a little better. I mean, I picked Florida State to win that game, but I thought it showed you just what being physical can do to Florida State. It can throw them off their game a little bit. But I think Florida State answered the bell as well, man. I mean, they were down 10-0 and 17-7 in that first half and put together 2 pretty good back-to-back touchdown drives to stay in the game, to keep it close. I don't know. Jared, I mean, did you get to watch Clemson
I
Florida
got to
State?
watch a little bit of it, and it amazes me that Florida State didn't lead until overtime.
Yeah.
They just weren't on the same page. Like
Yeah.
miscommunication on routes. It was more offense than defense. They
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
couldn't communicate with routes. They were getting confused, and they weren't really able to run the ball at all. And Florida State had a 2-point victory against Boston College last week. They beat Clemson in overtime, so they're hanging by a thread right now. They
Yeah.
had a great opening win against LSU, but they have to go back to the drawing board and reassess and reset because the ACC is no slouch either.
No.
And they're going to have to play tough the rest of the way through if they want to make it to the college football playoff.
No, sadly, there are some really good teams in the ACC. And I think you said it was more offensive than defensive. I think Jordan Travis they had a lot of one-on-ones all day. And I don't know if you saw after the game, Travis said that he kind of thought Clemson disrespected them by not paying more attention to the receivers, whatever. I don't know what he wanted. I mean, I don't know why you would.
Yeah, they played bad.
It sounds like they defended them pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, right? But I mean, yeah, they thought there should have been more double coverages, I guess, on Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. But he missed a lot of throws. I mean, he had a lot of one-on-ones where it was like, 50-50 ball, and he just didn't make the throw early. But listen, give him credit because they came back and they got it done. Obviously, the play of the game was the sack and the scoop and score by Kalen DeLoach. I mean, to tie the game up at the end of the third quarter, and there was no scoring in the fourth quarter at all. But yeah, that was a weird play too because Klubnik, I think there was a missed cover or a missed assignment there. There was something that someone was supposed to have picked up DeLoach because Klubnik didn't even look that direction. And I mean, it wasn't like it was coming from his blind side; it came from directly in front of him. So I don't know. It just feels like Clemson maybe dropped a huge opportunity there to get back into the national picture. I mean, they had Florida State on the ropes. They were about to go up 14, and DeLoach comes up with the huge individual play. But one thing I thought was kind of odd too. Do you guys remember when Clemson lost to Duke? I don't know if you remember. Klubnik came off the field and kind of, he gave Swinney the cold shoulder, right? Like Swinney held out his hand. He didn't dap him up, man. He gave him no five. Just walked right by him, right? I wonder if Swinney had a moment of like awareness, like self-awareness right there. And instead of taking it, instead of being offended by that or, whatever he could have done, he could have gone any other way with it. It feels like they might have had like this meeting, right? Like he and Klubnik might have talked because at the beginning of the game, especially against Florida State, I noticed that like every single pass was like to the boundary, to the other sideline, to the sideline, to the other, like left and right, nothing down the middle at all, intermediate or long. I mean, everything was either like a short screen pass, a slant, a quick slant, taking advantage of some man-to-man opportunities, or everything was to the sidelines. I don't know if that's just Klubnik's like comfort zone. If he talked to, Swinney said, "Hey, what are we doing here? Like, what do you want to do?" Did you notice that at all, Jared? I mean, did you notice early on they were just
they were playing small ball, and at the end of the day, as a fan, you don't want to see that. You don't want to play small ball. But as a player and as a quarterback, you're like, okay, as long as we get down to the field and score, then I don't care. Whatever puts points up on the board. But yeah, they were playing a little conservative, I think, and I think that's what ultimately cost them the game.
Yeah.
They obviously you don't want to do the deep ball all the time.
No.
But at the end of the day, you got to open up the defense, spread them out.
Yeah.
But they are playing man coverage.
It felt like there were opportunities to take a shot. I mean, even out of play action, it felt like there were opportunities to take a shot downfield. And I don't know if Klubnik is just not comfortable. I don't know if they were trying to stay away from the speed in the middle of Florida State's defense. Like, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was, schematic or if it was just like I said, maybe they were just taking what they were being given. I don't know. But it just felt very intentional to start the game. It felt like watching a pair of windshield wipers just go back and forth. I mean, sideline to sideline. I mean, that was the offense. But yeah, like I said, it felt like Clemson dropped a huge opportunity. Jackson, do you have any thoughts on Florida State at all?
That was one of my teams from a few weeks ago when we were talking about who's in the mix. If it's not the usual four, who do you think it would be?
Do you feel the same way?
And I said FSU or USC. And from what I've seen, I liked how FSU started. I didn't like the struggle factor against Clemson because I don't think Clemson is as good as advertised.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think Florida State is one of the top 4 teams in the country right now.
Okay.
If so, they are 4. But I'm not feeling that.
I agree.
That
Like
season,
4.1. Yeah.
that season opening win against LSU keeps, like, in my opinion, it doesn't look as good as it did at the time. And now back-to-back weeks, they only beat Boston College by 2 and have to go to overtime versus Clemson. Florida State, they haven't been playing their best football certainly, and they did drop from the 5 in polls. So if they don't start playing better, then they could definitely keep dropping.
And that's the thing especially in the ACC, they'll have Duke coming up, and Duke played Clemson very well, and they handled Clemson a lot easier than Florida State did. So I mean, granted, Duke's only ranked 18 right now, but definitely a matchup that could be interesting to watch, especially if they beat Notre Dame this upcoming weekend, because they do have Notre Dame. Yeah, it could be something to watch towards the end of the season, especially for ACC standings and for Florida State's playoff chances.
Yeah.
We need to pull for Duke, or we need to pull for Notre Dame this weekend. We need Notre Dame to run the table.
Yeah.
I want Notre Dame to, as an Ohio State fan, I would like Notre Dame to win.
As a Buckeye fan, we need to be Irish this year.
It would be great if they didn't go, 7-5 now. I mean, especially since there was like the tough battle. And then let's move on to it. Let's just talk about Ohio State and Notre Dame because, man, that game was an all-time, that was an instant classic, right? I mean, Ohio State beats Notre Dame 17-14, literally on a last-second touchdown by Chip Trayanum, man. I mean, by the way, 10 guys on the field for Notre Dame on defense there for the last two plays.
I don't know if Ohio State would have won that game, though, because imagine they had a defensive lineman or another linebacker on the side they ran it to. Would Trayanum have gotten in?
I don't know, Max. That's a good point. I keep seeing people online saying we weren't going to stop Trayanum, but he barely got in. I mean,
because they had like 4 offensive linemen on the right side, and then 2 corners and a linebacker on the left, and they had 2 corners out to cover Luka and Harrison.
And he almost fumbled it too.
Yeah, he almost did.
You saw the ball move as he was going down on the ground, and he almost fumbled it. So he was that close to blowing the game.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if he would have fumbled it. Maybe it would have been a situation where it actually would have helped him a little bit. He might have been going down and fumbled it into the end zone and recovered it in the end. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like, we'll never know because it went the way it went. But
at least the important thing is that they won the game, and we have more faith in Kyle McCord and the Buckeyes now. Because before that game, we're like, oh, we're not so sure. But now that Kyle McCord had experience in that game-type situation, prime time, against a very good Notre Dame team, we have more confidence in the Buckeyes and in McCord. The only thing because McCord on that last drive of the game was amazing. That's the best I've ever seen Kyle McCord play so far in his short career. But I think in the future, for these upcoming big games that we're going to have, like against Penn State, against that team up north, and even Maryland in a couple of weeks, because we haven't played Maryland that well in the last 3 years.
Yeah. Maryland could be 5-0 for that game.
In reality, what McCord has to do and what the Buckeyes offense has to do is finish drives. Because there was times in the first half, especially I think it was in the first quarter, they were 4th and goal near the goal line and they didn't score. So those are times if you want to win a national championship, you have to score on those plays. You have to score on those drives. It can't just be Travion Henderson running down the sideline for a touchdown. It can't just be Harrison Jr. getting all the receptions, even though he didn't really have a big impact in the game.
He did get hurt on that one Henderson run. He was Notre Dame linebacker safety was trying to tackle Henderson, and because it's turf, he slid right into Henderson's ankle, and that was a point like, this guy's been hurt 3 times almost now, and now we're wondering is this guy's leg or both legs are they stable enough to finish out the year? Because if he's getting hurt on a play where he's gets hit or something. And he lands on his leg weird. I understand if he lands on his leg weird, but is it going to be enough to where he can keep running those routes that he's so good at, and that he can get us in the prime position to score touchdowns?
Well, he looked visibly slowed. I mean, Saturday night after the ankle injury, I think it was obvious that he was a little slowed down. I was impressed that he came back in. Listen, he's built different
all year.
He was tough.
He hasn't missed. After he got hurt every time this year, I think it's been 3 or 2 times. He's come back in.
And they've looked bad. I mean, the ankle injury, last week he landed on his shoulder weird, and you could see it. I mean, the way he came down on his arm, it didn't look good at all, but he gets right back in there, man. He's tough kid. His dad was tough.
Just like his dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out Kyle McCord, because heading into this game, that was what all the questions were. Does Ohio State have the quarterback? Can he match up with Sam Hartman? And he was nails. In the clutch moments, he wasn't great all night. He missed some throws for sure, but in the biggest moments on 3rd down, on a 3rd and 19 throw to Emeka Egbuka to get him down to the 1, he made it. He made the plays when it mattered. And that is really all that matters, because that's what Ohio State can get the win. So
Yeah, Nick, that's a great point. He made a couple bad throws, but I mean, it was the way he recovered. I mean, his face never changed. Like he had this like steel glaze on his face all night, man. It was like he just looked focused. You know what I mean? He handled the environment really well. He almost threw a pick on the last drive, and everybody wants to point that out, but he didn't, and he came back from it. I mean, he came back and he made a couple nice throws. You know what I mean? Like a couple really, really nice throws. So
that's the thing with the quarterback battle. Like Sam Hartman wasn't that flashy. Yes, he still doesn't have an interception, but he didn't really do much. It was mainly the Fighting Irish's defense and their run game. Ohio State
Yeah.
up 176 rushing yards on defense. It was not that great. That was the one thing that Ohio State has to work on defense is their rushing defense. Because they basically, I get it, Notre Dame's an O-line college, but at the end of the day, it's just like pathways through the middle of the field. Like, hey, just run right past us. You know, they got to work on the running defense.
yeah, they do have a big O line, and it helps to have 5 sets of fresh legs back there. I mean, it really does. You saw 5 different running backs in the first quarter, but yeah, I thought McCord actually outplayed Sam Hartman for the most part.
Big time.
Yeah, he was 21 of 37 for 240 yards. Didn't throw a touchdown, but he also didn't throw an interception. Right? I thought he managed the game just fine. He never listen. They didn't use timeouts unnecessarily in this game. The crowd noise didn't seem to be a factor. I mean,
I thought that was going to be a big factor going into that game because it's a night game against a big ranked opponent, and it's Ohio State.
Yeah.
It's just like Notre Dame versus Michigan. That's a big rivalry.
Yeah.
Whenever they play each other, that place is packed. That place is loud. I went to a game at Notre Dame years ago against Boston College, and that's a big game for them sometimes. And that's when they had Manti Te'o and everybody.
Yeah.
That was a loud stadium.
Yeah, it's loud. Everyone says it might be louder than the big house, just because of acoustics and the way it's built. I mean, the big house kind of spreads out a little bit, and it's like you're yelling across the expanse a little bit. Notre Dame, I think you're yelling down at the players a little more.
Yeah.
So maybe it feels a little louder. I don't know. I've never played in an environment like that. I would have no idea.
It was like I thought that McCord was going to be that last drive. When we got to third down, I was like, here we go. This is our season. And then he came up and made a clutch play.
Yeah. Third and 19.
One play where he almost got intercepted.
Yeah.
Me personally, I think he waited too long to get that ball out of his hands. I think if he threw that quicker before that safety came crashing down, then Stover would have had a lot of yards and we could have won that game a lot quicker.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, Notre Dame didn't really bring any pressure on that last drive. And I think that's a fantastic point.
They brought some, but he was ready for it.
Yeah, but they just didn't. They didn't mix anything up. It seemed like they almost went into a little bit of a prevent, like a really kind of a bland, conservative, like don't make any mistakes, don't get beat deep.
Scared.
They played scared. They didn't play to win.
I thought that intentional grounding is like that was going to be the end of the game because like normally I thought there was like a 10-second runoff with that.
Well, I took a timeout to avoid that. Yeah.
Yeah, but they called the timeout to avoid it, and I was like, oh my god.
But again, and again, listen, that's where Kyle McCord's kind of veteran savvy came in handy, right? Because they had that timeout to take. I mean, think of how the little things played out, and I think there's some truth to the fact that Notre Dame kind of gave this game away a little bit, right?
No, yeah.
But that's how games go. I mean, that's how these close games go. There's moments to win and lose, and if you don't take advantage of the moments to win, you typically lose. That's the way it goes. But listen, I want to ask you, Max. I'll start with you. Did Ryan Day and the Buckeyes kind of shake their soft label here?
I don't think so because that was a hard, gritty victory. That once because I watched the cinematic thing they had for it, and they interviewed Chip Trainum. Like when they scored their second touchdown to go up 14-10, he's like, "Oh, now this is a dogfight. Now we have to go out there." And we have to win this game. Did they make some questionable calls on 4th and short going with a jet sweep? Yes.
That was terrible.
Could they have gone like a power run with Chip Trainum? Yes. But the defense on that final drive showed up. They had one bad play, I think, on that drive. But then it was like a sack in the backfield and almost interception, and then causing Hartman to throw a quick pass that wasn't there yet and didn't get the yards. And then when we came back on the field, Kyle McCord showed that he can do this. He can play big drives. He can go down the field and win the ball game with 1:26.
Without a doubt. Hey, Jared, let me ask you this. Defensively, I mean, the defense was just they were dominant all night. A little trouble against the run here and there. And they did allow a pretty balanced game out of the Irish. I mean, 175 rushing, 176 passing, I think it was. Or it could be the other way around. Doesn't matter. 1 yard. Is it time to start giving Jim Knowles some credit here? Does he deserve credit?
I think he does. I think the defense has been the shining of this Ohio State team so far.
Yeah.
And Jim Knowles has done a great job shutting guys down. And it just proved this week against Notre Dame that we have a great defensive coordinator to help us out in big games like this.
Yeah.
Shutting the defense, it's that saying that we say in sports all the time, defense wins championships. And in that game against Notre Dame, defense won us that game. And
Yeah.
I really think we have a great defensive lineup, and it's really going to make some noise, hopefully, in the Big Ten and in the college football playoff.
Hopefully in November. And speaking of November, I think, well, obviously they've got Penn State coming up first. They've got a couple big games, but I we're fans, and I want to fast forward to the game that really matters to us. I mean, Jackson, I'll start with you here. Was this the blueprint? I should say, was that game a little bit the blueprint to beat Michigan? I mean, is that how they're going to do that?
It's ironic you asked me that because as soon as the Ohio State game ended and I heard Ryan Day's post-game speech and I got to see some action in the locker room, Michigan crossed my mind. It's crazy. I was seeing all the energy. I was thinking even during that drive that McCord was on, I was group chatting with you guys.
Yeah.
And I was saying, this is it.
I was avoiding it because I was watching on DVR late. I didn't see any of it, but
But the crazy part is Michigan crossed my mind that evening a couple times. And I was thinking, if this is the Ohio State team that we're going to be taking up into Ann Arbor, I think I'm okay with that because I looked at it this way. Mathematically, between now and then, we got about 8-9 games to get better.
Yeah.
Like the team that we saw Saturday night will not be the team that we see in late November.
No.
And I felt good about it. I like where we're at now compared to where we'll be then. I feel like we're going to take a dog up into Ann Arbor. I feel better.
Yeah.
I don't want
to better
I'm not
too.
100%, but I feel so much better.
I feel
As
better
Ohio
too.
State fans, we feel better, but we also, obviously we want to beat Michigan, and everyone's looking forward to that game. But we still got to take care of business, like I said earlier, against Maryland because we've had struggles defensively against Maryland in the past. Yes, we've beaten them.
Yeah.
We struggled against all types of teams.
And we have Penn State. Penn State is ranked number 7 right now.
There have been some weird Maryland games, man. 42-41 a few years back or whatever it was. I mean, there have been some weird ones for sure.
Yeah.
So
those are the two games you got to bring the same attitude, the same energy like you did against Notre Dame. You have to beat those two teams, and then we can start getting towards Michigan and getting towards hopefully the Big Ten title back to Columbus.
For sure. Hey, one more quick thing on Ohio State. I just want to start with Jackson, and then I'll go around the room. Jared, Max, Nick. One more question. Who would win in an actual fight in a boxing match? Lou Holtz or Ryan Day? I want to put the card up and just kind of not too much analysis. Just give me one word. Just give me the name. Who wins?
Man, they're ready to crap. I love to see it.
All right, look, real quick. I don't know if y'all know this. Lou Holtz called out Jimmy Johnson back in the day, the Hurricanes coach. He was like, look, if we get into it with them, you save Jimmy for me. So in this case, damn, I'm going to have to say a draw. I'm going to say a draw.
What?
Lou Holtz,
9-year-old man.
Lou Holtz has it in him. Lou Holtz has it in him. But I've seen Ryan Day in the locker room. I think Ryan Day, he ain't a joke. I see a draw.
You're crazy. Ryan Day needs one jab and he's done. Ryan Day is still athletic. He's a football coach. He can move with just one pow right to the face. And he's
I can't
done.
believe we're analyzing this.
Look,
Look,
Max, go ahead. I want to hear your opinion here, Max.
Okay.
I know it
say
be a
one
draw.
thing.
I just want to jump on the bandwagon.
After
Ryan
the game on
Ryan
Saturday,
Day would do that, Lou Holtz.
Lou Holtz came back at Ryan Day after his comments, and he said that we're not going to beat Penn State and we're not going to be physical enough to beat Michigan again.
I feel like you made that up. Okay,
Ryan
Nick.
Day would trample Lou Holtz in 10 seconds.
All right, Max is going to punch Lou Holtz. All right, Nick, what do you think, man?
Yeah,
Lou Holtz,
I am.
Ryan Day, what
I
happened?
think every Ohio State fan is because he thinks he knows everything.
So a lot of
He
people
doesn't remember most
Ryan
things. It's
Day's trying
fine.
to be with like an 86-year-old and like,
Yeah.
oh, he's just an 86-year-old. But no, Lou Holtz knows what he's doing. He's doubling down, and he doubled down after the game. So I don't think I have no sympathy for Lou Holtz here. I
didn't even know who
I
Lou
think
Holtz
Ryan
was
Day-
coming into this.
Oh, my gosh, dude.
That's
Stop it.
That's disrespectful.
You can kindly, walk out the door to your right over there. You need to leave.
But, yeah, Ryan.
You know where the
I
door
mean,
is. Better watch out.
If you get the Lou Holtz from the Pat McAfee show, I don't know if you guys saw that. Lou Holtz got
Yeah.
beat by Lou
Yeah.
Holtz.
Yeah.
If you can get that guy, maybe it's a closer fight. But
At the end of the day, like even though Ryan Day like was kind of hurt with Luke Holt's comments, at the end of the day, it just fires him up more to improve his team and prove him wrong.
I've never seen that fire from Ryan Day.
I've
Have you
never-
guys
Last
seen that fire?
time I saw that was Clemson a couple years ago.
That post game interview was great. That's the best post game interview I think I've seen so far
Did you
this
guys
year.
see the locker room?
And from
Did you see
Ryan
the locker room celebration?
Yes, I did.
NBC, it was fantastic.
I think that is going to fuel them this year to go, hey, if our coach has our back like this when someone talks down about us, imagine what we can do when everybody else talks down about us.
That feels good as a player. It reminded me, like, that post-game interview reminded me of, like, it felt like it was, like, WWF back in the day. Like, he was talking to Mean Gene Okerlund, right?
Right.
And by the way, speaking of WWF, that's a little bit of maybe just a precursor for the October 25th show. Just remember that. Keep your eye on that. Also, man, listen, we got to move on. Listen, great win for the Buckeyes. I'm looking forward to them having the bye week now. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. needs that rest.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's another week for them just to kind of get back on. Perfect time for the bye week, like they scheduled it themselves. But it works out really well. So we'll see Maryland in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that on the show next week. But I got to talk about the Browns, man, because listen, I have just a new perspective on the Browns. I said the Browns were going to finish fourth in this division. Because of this defense, you guys, I may have changed my mind, man. The Browns are starting to prove some things to me. It's a long season. I know everybody's got to stay healthy. You got to go out there and you got to stay focused for, 17 weeks of this thing. But, the Browns absolutely dominated the Titans on Sunday. Just smothering defense, won 27-3. I thought it was interesting that the first game without Nick Chubb, they won by 24 on the 24th. I thought that was a cool touch. Whatever, for whatever it's worth, if you're a numbers guy. And if you're not, it's still cool. Whatever. Shut up and go with me. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this the Browns team we can expect to see? Jackson, as a Steelers fan, let me get your perspective first.
I'm not really surprised. They're doing defensively what I thought they should be doing.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think they're a fourth place team,
No.
but as far as division champion, I don't want to go that far.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of improvement that's needed offensively, and it's going to be the defense that wins a lot of games for them this year.
Agreed.
The way the schedule goes, I think their defense is going to be whatever success they have ultimately. I think it's going to be more so because of the defense than the offense.
I agree with you, and it feels like they can rely on special teams a little more too. That's a good thing. That really is a good thing. Jared, did you think? I thought Deshaun Watson looked much better on Sunday. Did you think?
Yeah, I think he was more comfortable in the pocket, for sure.
Yeah.
And he was just more accurate with his throws, and it helped out with Ford as well, because Ford, I think, really stepped up in that game, got a touchdown pass, got a running touchdown as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think with the help of Ford, it made Watson more comfortable, and it just made him feel more comfortable overall.
Yeah.
And I really think as Browns fans, for Nick and Max and you, Chad, they're more comfortable and they're more confident in the division and for the rest of the season. And I really think it's going to play out against Baltimore this upcoming week, because Baltimore hasn't done anything flashy. They faced the Colts and the Texans, and they lost to the Colts because all Lamar did was run in. Couldn't get to be granted, the Ravens are down J.K. Dobbins. They have a lot of injuries on defense. But at the end of the day,
Yeah, the Dobbins injury hurts bad.
just like the Browns and the Bengals, you have a reputation to win that division. and they are not playing like a division team at all right now.
Yeah.
So I think with the Browns defense performance this past week and with Deshaun performance this past week, I really think they have success to take over the Ravens and take over first place in the NFC North.
Yeah. Hey, Nick. So Myles Garrett, 3.5 sacks on Sunday. Okay. Browns held the Titans to 6 first downs. We keep seeing this, right? But it's like and people keep having things to say, and I understand it, man. Like, we had a hobbled Joe Burrow. The weather was weird. Okay, that's fine. That's one thing. The Steelers' offense is, they're struggling. They've got Matt Canada, as the offense. Oh, okay, that's a struggle a little bit on offense there.
Heard Antonio Brown was undercover.
Yeah, Ryan Tannehill. Listen, on Sunday. I mean, is it a Browns defense thing, or is it an opponent thing, or is it? I mean, where do you lean? Is it like 70-30 Browns, or is it 50-50? What do you think?
To me, I mean, when you do this 3 games in a row, that kind of like takes the doubt away that it's like one singular team. And Derrick Henry's still Derrick Henry, and they held him to 11 carries for 20 yards. DeAndre Hopkins is still an all-pro receiver. Jamar Chase, all-pro receiver, held the 39 yards against Denzel Ward. You saw what he did against the Rams on Monday. So, I mean, this Browns defense, you can't question that they're legit right now. They rank first in the NFL in yards per game allowed, rushing yards per game allowed, passing yards per game allowed, first downs allowed per game, third down percentage, and points allowed per game. That's every meaningful stat. They rank first in.
Yeah, I started to make a graphic of all the defensive stats, Nick, but I couldn't fit them all.
They've only given up 21 first downs this season. The second most is 41 allowed.
And granted, like we said, they've played some very bad offenses, and they've played some, offenses that have been in some weird situations, but that's still really good in the NFL. I mean, there's a lot of parity in the NFL. I mean, these are the best of the best. I mean, these are the absolute best football players in the world.
And I want to say we saw the Cardinals or the Cowboys defense that everyone was saying was arguably the best in the NFL heading into this week. They just gave up 28 points to the Cardinals. So
sorry, Jared.
Bad team or not, like you got to show up every week.
Do the Cowboys need to face New York every week to be that good, or do we?
Probably. Yeah, just the rotating Giants Jets schedule. They'll be fine. Well, listen, if they face the Jets and Zach Wilson, they're going to be fine. We know that.
Just wait. We got New England coming up, and the defense is going to take shape again. I know it.
Hey, Chad.
Yeah.
Chad, can I add? Last week, Deshaun Watson's success. Jared made the statement how he looked much better. I think it should be pointed out he should look better against a team that he's more familiar with seeing. He's probably going to do better against the AFC South teams, just statistically, just on the strength. I think he's more comfortable playing against those defenses. Honestly, this is my hot take for the day. I don't think Deshaun Watson is cut to play in the AFC North.
Okay.
It has to get cold. The weather doesn't get better from this point of the calendar. So whatever he's not doing now, I assume he's gonna turn it on when it gets cold.
Now I think that Watson, it was a bad weather game. The week 1 against the Bengals. Week 2 was just weird because Chubb was done. He really didn't have that. I don't think he was.
The O-line was terrible.
The O-line was terrible that game. He didn't have Chubb. He wasn't confident in himself.
Yeah.
But this Titans team, they almost came back and beat the Chargers week 2. And yet the Chargers aren't a good team, but when they play good football, the Chargers are good. Yet they're not a good team. So I think that you allowed Derrick Henry to say 20 yards.
20 yards and 11 carries.
That's and normally a couple of years ago, when we faced him, he had 88 and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. It's I don't know if it's coaching, obviously, but when you have your defensive end being chased by 2 tight ends from side to side, there's something there.
And it didn't work. Listen, it didn't work.
A dominant defensive line who's killing you, and this one guy's just solo-handedly mangling your tackles.
Yeah, listen, Max, I think there are times when you can put 12 guys on offense out there and have one guy just shadow Myles Garrett, have another guy help, another guy chip, and it wouldn't matter. I don't think there's much you can do.
Still get through them.
Yeah, and that defensive line is so good now. They're so complete now.
And plus, they're sending more blitz. They're blitzing more than they did last year.
They really are. And I think they trust their defensive backfield a little more than they did last year.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, when you get to the quarterback faster, good things happen in the back. Listen, the Browns haven't even started to take the ball away yet. That's the crazy thing. The Browns defense is so good they haven't gotten any real takeaways. They have no takeaways almost. I mean,
Didn't they
it's,
have like 2 against Pittsburgh?
yeah, but that my point is that's coming, right? Like that stuff is going to come, and then how much better are they going to be? That's wild to me. And listen, I want to ask a rhetorical question. Maybe the NFL can answer this. You guys don't really have to answer this because I can't believe it's time to get out of here already. But what in the world happened on that Amari Cooper play? I mean, inadvertent whistles aside, what was that?
All I have to say is play it out. If you're not sure if he stepped out of bounds or not, play the play out. I don't understand. Like I've seen it a few times this year where just refs are not playing until the ball is dead. Like if you don't know, don't blow the whistle.
Yeah.
Like,
I think they should make a rule that if someone's feet are still moving forward, then they should not blow the whistle until like they see them starting to fall back or like.
Well, that's the thing. They say it was an inadvertent whistle. It was an unintentional whistle. He didn't mean to blow the play dead. He had it ready to blow the play dead for another reason. That didn't happen. He ended up blowing the whistle. I don't know if he just got excited. I don't know what happened, but the whistle blew, and at that point, the play has to stop. I mean,
he probably wanted to say, "Ooh."
Yeah, right. He was like, "Ooh, look at this, man! Watson made a throw finally, man. $250 million quarterback finally made a
Here's
throw."
the other thing with Watson. How that ball to Jerome Ford was a pretty good. Like, but
It was a pretty good. I'm glad we learned that. What
Wide
else did we learn on the show today? We learned that when teams score points, they score points in games only. And when the Chargers play good football, they're a good football team. We learned that today.
Yeah.
Listen, we'll always play it out, right? I mean, we'll always play it out to the last whistle. I don't know. You guys hear a whistle? I don't hear a whistle. Is it time to stop? Hear a whistle? I wish we had a whistle. I need a whistle, man. We need a whistle on the show. Hey, listen, it's been a great show. We appreciate you guys watching. A lot of good college football this weekend. The Buckeyes have a bye. That makes it a little, disappointing for me, but I get to watch some games kind of in an unbiased way now.
Chad, does USC have a bye this weekend?
Kind of. Kind of.
That was a bad joke for the day.
I'll go in there, sweep the floor, and then we'll walk out.
Yeah, they might wave goodbye to Colorado, but that's okay. I think Colorado's going to score some more points. They'll compete a little more. But we talked about, 7 or 8 wins, maybe their ceiling. That's good enough. I mean, that's a good enough improvement from 1-11. Listen, if we can go from 1-11 to 7-5 on this show, I'll be pretty happy, right?
We're undefeated.
We are undefeated. I forgot. We talked about that last week. We are
undefeated.
But hey, guys, for Jared, for Max, for Nick, for Jackson, for Brian, who's back from his space travels. He went on the USA Select Space Tour. And for Richard and everybody who's been helping us out for the last few weeks. We're glad to be back on our Come On Ref home. It was fun to have you guys, in my neck of the woods for a few weeks. It was fun to host the show on my YouTube channel. Maybe we'll still throw it up there from time to time. But yeah, thanks guys so much for watching. Just please remember to like and subscribe. Feel free to comment. Let us know what we did right. Let us know what we did wrong. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.